think it's hard to think that they can recreate, with a trainer, how we do things. And we see that with guys that have come back and started with our off-season program and guys that have joined a few weeks in. It's just different. And I know that they're working and they think that they are trying to get in shape, but that's just not the case. And so that's something that we have to focus on and try to make sure that we're getting some work in. But with all of them, we're trying to be as smart as we possibly can, Jim.
We're competing against each other. We're watching the same tape. We're doing the same drills. I don't think it's my job to mentor him, but if he learns from me along the way, then that's a great thing.
The Tennessee Titans had a lot of high hopes entering last year's NFL playoffs, and ultimately it ended in a very disappointing way with a Ryan Tannehill interception to the eventual AFC champions. As a result, Ryan Tannehill even said that he had to check himself into therapy as a result of the way that the Tennessee Titans season has concluded. And going into the offseason, if you were able to get a first round bye in the AFC playoffs, then one would assume that you wouldn't have to make that many substantial changes to your team's roster. But that's not the approach that the Tennessee Titans took. As a matter of fact, very similarly to the San Francisco 49ers, it seems like a gigantic change is on the horizon for the Tennessee Titans. Only for the Titans, they moved on from a legitimate franchise cornerstone in A.J. Brown, and they're already developing their quarterback of the future in Malik Willis. And if there's one thing that we could all agree on, it's that things haven't gone so smoothly for the Tennessee Titans in training camp. Now, before we get to the content, tomorrow on May 15th, I'm announcing a giveaway winner for $500 to a subscriber that turns on our notifications on this channel. I'm going to announce it in a video and my channel's community tab in the event that you missed the video. And now that we got all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Guys, the biggest surprise of the entire NFL draft was the fact that the Tennessee Titans traded A.J. Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles. In that package for A.J. Brown, they got the 18th overall pick in the NFL draft and selected Treylon Burks. Now, Tennessee Titans fans were absolutely baffled at this trade, and it really just comes down to a difference in team building philosophy. You either believe that top wide receivers are very difficult to come by, and you should pay top dollar to retain a good wide receiver once you're able to draft them, or you believe that they are replaceable and they aren't a position that you want to shell out heavy amounts of capital to retain. Then when you combine that with the fact that this past offseason we saw the biggest contracts in NFL history being handed out to wide receivers, I mean, to put it in perspective, Tyreek Hill is the top paid wide receiver in the NFL this year. He signed a 4-year $120 million contract with $72 million guaranteed and an average annual salary of $30 million once getting traded to the Miami Dolphins. The deal was so good that not only was he willing to move on from the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, but during his introductory press conference, Tyreek Hill quite literally said that the money changed his thinking in regards to what team he wants to continue playing for.
How hard is it for you to leave Kansas City, and what was maybe like what you talked to Pat Mahomes with, kind of after everything happened?
It's tough. It's tough, man. But if somebody comes to you with a lot of money, it changes. It changes. The feelings start to change a little bit. Now let me stop. But
to put things in perspective, Tyreek Hill got paid more money annually this year than the quarterback of the defending Super Bowl champions did last year, Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford got paid $27.5 million annually, making him the 13th highest paid quarterback in the NFL last year. Obviously, he got a huge contract extension this year, but it's just to put things in perspective as to how much money wide receivers are currently getting paid. As a result, the 2019 wide receiver class is in line for big paydays. Players like Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, and of course A.J. Brown. As a result, you're seeing Deebo Samuel and A.J. Brown in trade rumors, and inevitably, that's why A.J. Brown got traded. The Tennessee Titans couldn't afford to pay him what he inevitably got paid from the Philadelphia Eagles. So with that trade came the draft pick that was used on Treylon Burks. And Treylon Burks, ironically, had a similar draft profile to A.J. Brown. Now, minicamp has officially started for the Tennessee Titans, and it hasn't been without its controversy thus far. I mean, 11 days ago, you had Ryan Tannehill coming out and saying that it's not his job to mentor Malik Willis.
We're competing against each other. We're watching the same tape. We're doing the same drills. I don't think it's my job to mentor him, but if he learns from me along the way, then that's a great thing.
Which media took that headline and absolutely ran with it. Malik Willis actually cleared things up in regards to him and Ryan Tannehill right here.
Did you take anything from that, or anything of significance, or what are your thoughts?
Oh man, we chopped it up. I mean, it was never anything negative. Ryan's a good dude, and he had us, like I said, he had us over the house. Everything's cool, man.
And ultimately, man, I don't think this is a situation where Ryan Tannehill should feel threatened, considering the fact that Malik Willis was a third-round draft pick. There's been instances where starting caliber QBs were able to beat out third-round draft picks plenty of times before in the past. I think it was more the case that the opportunity to draft a player that was quite literally mocked in the top 10 in the NFL draft in the third round was just too good of an opportunity to pass up for the Tennessee Titans. And credit to Malik Willis for completely squashing the beef between himself and Ryan Tannehill. That brought in a brand new narrative that the NFL media is just taking and running with it. So Treylon Burks had his first rookie minicamp practice yesterday, and for the most part, if you look at the footage in front of you, it seemed like he struggled in the Tennessee Titans' first practice. It was 86 degrees, and Treylon Burks wasn't able to make it through. He was apparently laboring in team drills, and according to multiple reports, had breathing difficulties before going inside. He later returned, ran a few routes, and worked with wide receivers coach Rob Moore on his releases and head fakes before heading back inside. Burks did not return the second time. Now, Mike Vrabel had this to say.
I think it's hard to think that they can recreate, with a trainer, how we do things. And we see that with guys that have come back and started with our off-season program and guys that have joined a few weeks in. It's just different. And I know that they're working and they think that they are trying to get in shape, but that's just not the case. And so that's something that we have to focus on and try to make sure that we're getting some work in. But with all of them, we're trying to be as smart as we possibly can, Jim.
So if you're a Tennessee Titans fan, how much should you panic? Because bear in mind, you traded away A.J. Brown, and Treylon Burks is supposed to be the new A.J. Brown. He was compared to A.J. Brown. That's a lot of pressure to walk into, considering how high the expectations are for the Tennessee Titans coming into this year. If I'm being honest, I'm going to proceed with caution, because last year there was another narrative about a top wide receiver in the NFL draft that people just took and ran away from, and I'm going to hold myself accountable because I was an individual that was actually concerned about this narrative, and ultimately I was proven wrong. Do you guys remember when Jamar Chase was having trouble catching footballs during preseason and in training camp? It was a gigantic narrative that followed him for about 2 months. We forget about it now because the Cincinnati Bengals eventually made it to the Super Bowl, and for the most part, Jamar Chase had one of the most prolific rookie seasons that we've ever seen in NFL history. Well, I feel like it's way too early to panic about stuff like this. Treylon Burks shows up to training camp and he's out of shape, or maybe he has breathing difficulties. But at the same time, we're 18 weeks away from the start of the NFL season. So could it be that Treylon Burks took some time off after training for the draft combine and after getting drafted by the Tennessee Titans, and as a result showed up to training camp a little bit out of shape? I think that's definitely a possibility. Is this something that you should be concerned about? No, we're 18 weeks away from regular season football being played. Now, if this was August or hell, maybe even late July, then yeah, you could be a little bit concerned about the fact that Treylon Burks isn't in the best shape. And I assume as a result of that, he will get less playing time, but I don't think that's the situation here. Burks has 18 weeks to get himself in shape. I feel like he will get himself in shape eventually. I feel like this is a narrative that might be blown out of proportion a little bit. It's something we'll keep an eye on because the Tennessee Titans definitely had a unique offseason so far. Let me know in the comment section down below if you're a Tennessee Titans fan. Are you really worried about Treylon Burks' weight or conditioning? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.